Okay, welcome to the Cypcut laser control video series here. So I'm just going to walk you through initially. This is the Cypcut interface or Cypcut interface when you boot up the machine, and the version of Cypcut that you're using may look a little bit different than this depending on the machine. There may be some controls over here on the right side that look a little different. But in general, things should be laid out very similarly. So this first video in the series is going to walk you through just the basic layout of the interface. And for part of this video, I'm actually going to take you out to my machine and record separately instead of doing a screen capture like we have here, which will give us the best quality experience for you. There are some things, I'm working on a simulation copy of it on a separate machine so I can do the true screen record. There are some things that you need to see the live machine on, and you're going to have to bear with the process that those are going to be recorded a screen with a cell phone. So we'll walk out and take a look at that in a minute, but I'm going to show you as many things as I can in the interface here as an overview. So when you load up your machine, you're going to have your drawing board in the center, and you can see I've already got just a logo up here, and we'll walk through more details about that. But if you notice across the top here, there are a few tabs, and these are very self-explanatory and very basic, very easy to understand. But I'm going to start with the View tab here first because I want to show you a couple of critical things that you may be interested in right off the bat with your machine. So if you see here, you've got the language, and you can select your language here. So if you get your machine imported from China and it's not in the language that you want to click on and even if you can't even read what these tabs say, click on the fourth or the last tab over, and then if you click in this area right here, you should be able to drop this down and see the language of your preference and be able to read that in your language to be able to pick it. And then the second thing that you might want to do globally is set your unit of measurement. So you can go imperial or metric. So if you wanted to change this imperial, if you're in a Western country, and it's going to ask you to restart your machine, your Cypcut, if you change the language. But if you're in a Western country that uses imperial, you might want to do that. If you're somewhere else in the rest of the world and uses metric, you can set that. All right. So from there, your home screen is going to be like your normal operating screen where you can set your lead ins and lead outs and your sort order and lots of other information about how you want to set up your cut. The drawing is pretty self-explanatory. Let me just show you what you can do with the drawing here. And let me just show you this first. If you swipe and drag across your entire drawing, just like any other packages, you can highlight everything and then you can hit the delete key to delete it. Now, if you want to draw a rectangle or a circle, you can do that. So if we want to just draw a rectangle, we can pick that and draw it out. And if you drag and release, what I found the best to do is just go ahead and get your basic shape drawn. And really, I mainly just use the drawing to process offcuts. So if you end up with sheets that have spaces or areas of large areas that you want to, cut it and save an offcut, you can draw that. And once you get your part drawn, you can highlight it again and then go back to the Home tab and then go to the Scale right here, and you can scale this to be whatever size you want it to be. And again, you can see it's in metric right now, and you can keep the aspect ratio by default, or if you want to change one parameter individually, you can unlock that so that you can change that. And you can also set the reference point here where you want it to scale from. Do you want it to scale out from the center or from the top left down? That kind of thing. So again, if you wanted to process an offcut, you can go back to draw here and just draw a straight line and cut off an edge of your sheet. And once you get that drawn, you can scale that line. Let's say you got a 48-inch wide sheet and you want to cut a 48-inch line across the unused area. Again, go back to scale and set if you notice here on a line, it's only going to give you a choice to set one of the dimensions. So you could scale that and make that a 48-inch line or a 96-inch line or whatever, whatever line it is that you're wanting to cut. All right, so that is a look at the drawing. And again, I mean, you're not really going to use the drawing that much. You're going to do your drawings in your CAD software and, mostly use this for CAM and the operations of cutting. So the next tab over, we'll click that, is the nesting tab. And we're not going to say anything about that at this point, but this is where you set up your parts and your plates and your nesting and, the details of that. We're going to have a dedicated video later in the series to nesting. It's a little bit more of an advanced, topic. The next tab over is going to be the CNC tab. And I'm going to show you some of this actually out on the machine a little bit later in this overview. But one of the things that you're going to do when you boot up your machine is you're going to click this Go Origin button here, and that's how you home your machine. It homes it to the limit switches on the X and Y and Z axis. It also homes the focus setting on your laser if you have an auto-focusing laser head. The view, again, not a lot to show you here. I showed you the main points of that. You can, there's lots of options and things that you can do here in the view, but I think, the default views have worked for me, and that's something that you can take a look at. Not really critical to getting your machine up and going. And then the last thing I want to show you on the overview here of the interface is the far right. There's a couple of things that we want to look at. If you see the controls that I'm highlighting with the mouse here, this is going to be your jogging of the machine. And in the next video, you're going to see the use of the remote control, and you'll see many of these buttons here are mirrored on the remote control. So it's just like you see it, the big blue buttons are to jog the gantry around, and then the two smaller buttons here are to move your Z, jog your Z up and down. And then all of the buttons here are, again, related to controlling the machine. And then down at the machine control section here, this is basically your cycle start, how you can pause a job, stop a job in the middle. You can do a dry cut. You can frame out your cut. Again, I'm going to show you more about that in the remote control video and kind of show you how they're mirrored. And then this area right here is where you get to your layers area. And your layers are basically how you set the cutting parameters for the machine. So I'm going to click it and bring up the layers so that you can see that. And we're going to have a dedicated layers and parameters video a little bit later in the series. So I'm not going to walk you through that now. I'm just showing you how to get to that. So if you were to be cutting different types of materials, and let's say you're cutting some hot rolled 1/4-inch plate, you would go into this layers here and open up your preset parameters and select the one that you have for hot rolled plate. If you're going to cut 20 gauge stainless, same thing. So again, just a little bit of an overview of that. We're going to go in depth to that pretty soon in the video series here, but I just wanted to show you that this is how you access it over here. So for a high level interview or overview of the interface, this is kind of what you're looking at. We will proceed on to the next video, which is going to be an orientation of the remote control, but I'm also going to show you some things about the CNC tab, and we're going to go out on the machine to show you that. All right, so this is going to be the part of the overview, interface overview, that's going to be a little bit harder to see because I'm showing you this on my live machine. But if you go right here to the files area and you go down to diagnostic, and then go down or over to card monitor, this is going to show you your live working interface of your inputs and outputs, for things like limit switches and your various alarms and so forth. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to actually jog the machine here and show you this and try to get a shot of this in. You watch this limit switch right there and the remote, and so I'm just going to jog it to the limit, and you see the red light came on right there in the corner. So if I come off of it, you see. So if you ever get any kind of alarm or down in your alarm window right here, this would be the interface that you'd want to open up to kind of take a look at what's happening with your machine. This is one of the standard cards that works with Cypcut, so almost all the import machines are going to have this card. All right, so you can get to that, on the CNC tab. You got all your access to all your monitors, and then you can get to it here from, if you go down to diagnosis and go to card monitor, and then there's the another board here with a similar kind of thing for other inputs and outputs. Again, if your machine's running well, this is not anything that you're going to look at on a regular basis. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is your BCS 100, which is your height control. So if you click that, you get your interface here for it. And I had mine set to Chinese. I got to go back in and reset it to English because I was troubleshooting with a Chinese engineer the other day. But if you see your actual machine, you're getting a real-time monitor of that height controller, that instead of having to open the cabinet and deal with all that, you can open it up right on the screen and see where, what's going on with it, and if there's any alarms on it or any issues with it, where you set your soft limits and things like that. That's all in that. But I'm not gonna, this is more of an engineering and setup thing, not really a user operations. Your operator status, you would never really need to be working in that. But we did talk about, I showed you in the other part of it, that in the CNC tab, the main thing that you're going to do when you boot up your machine is click Go Origin there to get it booted up with. And sorry about the focus issue, but I'm going to show you, when you boot up your machine for the first time, if your machine happens to be way down at the other end, you want to manually jog it so that it's down at your home, near your home position, so that the homing process doesn't take forever. And so if you will notice here, we're going to click on Go Origin, and it's going to come up and ask, are you sure? And we're going to say yes, and I'm going to show you the machine and what it's actually doing. So you'll see it's going to come off of this limit right here, and then it's going off of the other limit, finding its home position, and that'll take a couple of seconds. And what will happen on the screen here, you can see it's actually showing you the work in progress, and then it's done. And I think down here you'll get some statuses about whether it found the origin and so forth. So from a overview interface, I had to show you this part of it on the actual machine. And at this point, you're ready to import a drawing and go ahead and cut, once you've honed the machine.